friends, today I am doing a super highly requested video on baby led weaning. For those of you who don't know, baby led weaning is a new way to look at starting your baby on solid foods. A lot of people don't know that there is another option besides just offering your baby food, doing the whole battle with your baby every time, trying to force them to eat with the spoon, the airplane, the choo-choo train, you know, all of that jazz. And I am here to tell you that there is a much easier way to do it. So I know that the term baby led weaning can be a little bit confusing. I believe that the term was kind of coined in the UK when naming this whole process, where they're talking about basically baby just starting solids and no longer being exclusively breastfed or bottle fed. Here in America, we kind of think, oh, they're weaning themselves off the breast, they're weaning themselves off the bottle, and there is the term food before 1 is just for fun for a reason. Up until the age of 1 year old, their prime nutrition should be coming from formula, from breast milk, and so any solids they're taking are just extra. This is really a time of exploration of foods, different tastes, different textures, and just kind of priming them for eating for the rest of their lives. I've always known that I wanted to do baby led weaning with Grace, and when it came time to start, it was just a little bit overwhelming and intimidating because, first of all, there's just like not a lot of information out there besides like blog posts and things like that, which are good. I mean, this is essentially exactly what I'm doing for you all, so I'm just giving you my experiences, my opinion, and sharing some of the things that I've learned along the way, but there's just not tons of stuff out there about it, which in this whole like culture where we have to read 85 books and look up 25 different articles for every little thing or every little stage of our baby's life, that can freak some people out. There are 2 resources that I do recommend to anyone starting baby led weaning, one more than the other, but that is the Baby Led Weaning book and the Baby Led Weaning cookbook. Now I say one more than the other because I think the Baby Led Weaning cookbook is pretty much all you need. There is a really nice solid introduction to baby led weaning, kind of telling you how to get started, explaining what baby led weaning is, explaining why babies don't need purees to start. And so I just think that this book is great. There's definitely more information. They give you lots of different stories and experiences from other moms and babies and things like that, but it's just a little bit unnecessary. Truthfully, this arrived after the cookbook did, so by the time this had got to my house, I was just kind of like, I don't really need it anymore. So I will have both of these linked down below, and I think that they are 100% a great place to start, and I think at least having the cookbook on hand is an essential tool to anyone who's going to be doing baby led weaning. Now that I've given you a little bit of an overview of baby led weaning, let's kind of talk about what it is and what exactly it means to do baby led weaning. This means that you do not start your baby off with any kind of purees. If you start with purees and then very rapidly move to other solids, that's just traditional weaning. Yes, it's traditional, huh? And it's just kind of not considered baby led weaning anymore because you did start them on purees, whether it's just a day or 2 or not. But it's never too late to switch your kid over and just start offering solid foods. The benefit of starting with baby led weaning versus starting with purees, well, it's not just one. I think that there are many. But basically, I think a baby really learns how to chew. That's been my biggest takeaway. She learned how to eat before she was taking food down. So there were a few weeks where she wasn't really swallowing much of anything, but she was learning how to chew. She was learning how to manipulate foods in her mouth, and I think that was completely invaluable because now you can see I'm giving her like little things like blueberries, and I am not at all concerned that she's going to choke. Also, like I mentioned, this kind of helps prevent the fight between the parents and the baby with the spoon and the purees and things like that. Baby led weaning allows a baby to eat foods and ingest foods at their own pace when they are ready. There are a couple signs of readiness that every baby should have before starting baby led weaning. We'll get to that in just a second, but it just really helps this particular kid. Every baby's different, we know this, and it just helps them develop at their own pace. It also exposes them to all kinds of different tastes, textures, Food is not just a mush that is sweetened with some sort of fruit or sugar. It is, you know, there's sweet, there's spicy, there's sour, there's tart. There's just a whole myriad of tastes out there. There are so many different textures to food. That's part of what makes eating so great. And so this way your baby gets to experience that too and learn from a very young age that that's what food's all about. So you're then later way less likely to get a picky eater. We're running out of food! Oh no! And now let's talk about readiness. Obviously, I am not a doctor, so of course I am going to recommend that you talk to your pediatrician before changing your baby's diet, just so that they are in the loop and for your particular baby, that is the right decision. Just solid foods in general, whether it's baby-led weaning or purees, obviously you want to consult your pediatrician before you change anything major like introducing solid foods. Now, it's highly recommended that you wait until 6 months to introduce solids to your baby, especially when doing baby-led weaning. There is the whole idea that the gut is not sealed until 6 months, and so it is beneficial, helps kind of prevent allergies and things like that if you do wait. Now, there's not just some magical switch that flips the day your baby turns 6 months, so I think you kind of have to go on a few of the other readiness signals rather than just that 6-month mark. One of the big ones is being able to sit up on their own or just very minorly assisted. A baby who's doing baby-led weaning is handling solid foods, and so it's imperative that they have a strong core, a strong neck, and are able to hold themselves upright so that their esophagus is not being impaired or impeded when they are trying to eat or swallow. Another big readiness sign is being able to very easily and accurately pick up items and put them to their mouths. If your baby is not able to grasp things yet or bring them up to their mouths pretty easily, then you definitely want to hold off and wait until that point to start your baby on solid foods. So for us, we started right about 5.5 months. At around 4.5 months, I would say she really started showing interest in food, but we were kind of able to hold her off by distracting her at meal times and things like that. And then right around 5 months, it just got to the point where we couldn't eat in front of her any longer. Anytime she saw anyone eating, she would start chewing, she would start drooling. It was like she knew exactly what to do, and she was so mad that she didn't have any food to be chewing herself. So we then just decided that, you know what, she is ready. She was sitting up by herself. I think she sat up on her own about a week after we started this, but she was able to sit for long periods of time just with the boppy wrapped around her, basically just to keep her from pushing back with her legs. So essentially she was sitting up on her own. But so we did not wait till that 6-month mark. That just wasn't right for us. So again, I'm going to emphasize every baby's different, but you do want to make sure that they are fulfilling all of those other developmental physical requirements. All right, so where to start? It's a little bit intimidating to just kind of set food in front of your baby, but it's also really exciting and fun as well. I'll definitely insert a clip of Gracie's first foray into food. We gave her a piece of chicken and an avocado. Excuse me, are you trying to get food too? This is not about cat-led weaning. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Now, this brings me to another point which seems a little bit out of order, but this was really my biggest question when starting baby-led weaning. And that was, do you just kind of dive in and give your kid a whole meal of spaghetti and meatballs for their first meal, or do you go down the route of saying, I'm only going to give them one new food every 3 days and wait for a reaction? Right? What are we supposed to do? So that recommendation is obviously just so that you know what gave them a reaction should they have a reaction. With baby-led weaning, you'll see kind of 2 different schools of thought in the very few resources that are out there. Some say you have to wait and do the one new food every 3 days, and others just say part of baby-led weaning is just diving right in, and obviously if you do hit a bump in the road and have an allergic reaction, you kind of have to do a little bit of backtracking to figure out what they ate. My biggest question about this, to some of my friends who did baby-led weaning, was well, at what point does it end? You could spend your entire life waiting 3 days to introduce a new food or a new spice or something like that. So at what point is that like kind of ridiculous? And a lot of them just said, well, you know, you kind of like hit the major food groups and then you see from there. Like if they're fine, then you just kind of dive right in. For us, we decided to do chicken and avocado, as I mentioned, as her first meal because those are very like mild foods. They're not like anything super crazy taste-wise. They both have different textures, and they're not usually foods that people are allergic to. So clearly right off the bat, we kind of did a mixture between the two schools of thought. I didn't just give her one food, but I also wasn't like just plopping like a whole meal with a bunch of different foods, a bunch of different spices right in front of her. The next couple days we introduced like sweet potatoes and I think pears and bananas and things like that. So we just kind of dove right in, but we started with foods that were most likely not going to give her an allergic reaction. Within about a week or two, we were like, all right, you know what, we don't have any kind of history of allergies in our family, like major serious food allergies, so we're just gonna go for it and see what happens, hope for the best, and it was totally fine. So again, I think you have to do what you're comfortable with and what works for you and for your family. So I just mentioned some of the foods that are good to start off with, you know, things like avocado, chicken. The one thing I will say about avocado is that it was really hard for her to pick up, and then it got her hand all slimy, so it made the chicken really hard to pick up. It was a little bit tough. So you know, in the future, baby number 2 probably won't start with avocado, or maybe I'll just kind of like mash it up and like let them kind of grab at it, I guess. But cutting things up into sticks or strips in the beginning is really, really helpful. It helps them to learn, but it gives them like big items to grab onto, to get to their mouth, to chew on, to suck on. In the beginning, they are not swallowing hardly anything, okay? So they are just like chewing on stuff, they're gonna move stuff around in their mouth, and then they're gonna spit it out. And so the easier it is for them, the better. Like I mentioned, it is a really good idea just to get the Baby Led Weaning cookbook because it will allow you to learn about different ways of preparing foods, give you some more ideas of what are good first foods to start with and things like that. And it'll also just kind of prepare you for what's to come. Now let's get to the big question that everyone always asks me when it comes to baby led weaning. And that is, how do you get over the fear of your baby choking? And it's a little tough because it's instinctual as a parent to be totally worried about your kid, and when they've never had solid food before and suddenly they're like taking a whole chunk of chicken to their face, you're like, oh my gosh, they're gonna choke, they're gonna stop breathing, and it's everything's gonna go horribly wrong. The great thing about babies is that they are designed to learn to have food. So when they're first eating, their gag reflexes are really, really far forward. So in adults, our gag reflex is like way at the back of your throat, okay? In babies, it's not the case. So they will gag a lot. Get used to the gagging. And it's a little creepy because you're like, oh gosh, are they choking? But you have to just kind of sit on your hands a little bit. I mean, you will know. If your kid is choking, you will know it. Gagging is not that. They're kind of just like, you know, they're gagging. It's exactly what it sounds like. And that's just their way of learning. And that's their way of preventing themselves from choking. They know. They like instinctually know what to do with food. The other big thing that is hard and again requires some sitting on the hands is the desire to go in and fish a piece of food out of their mouth. That, contrary to what you might think, is actually really dangerous and can lead to choking. You can very easily force the food further back down their throat and cause it to get lodged there. If you just let them work it off, even if they bite off a piece of something, they'll work it around with their tongue, they'll move it around, and then they will spit it out, okay? So it's hard, it's really hard, but just sit on your hands. And obviously, I mean, my husband and I took a class in infant and child CPR before we even had her, so should something go wrong, I mean, we are prepared and know what to do. But I'm just here to tell you, in the beginning, you kind of just have to like sit back and let your baby figure it out, because I promise you they will. It's actually pretty amazing how well they learn and just how they adapt to eating. Like I said in the beginning, they're not really swallowing much. You can just kind of see them, they spit it all out. As you can see, we have one of these Baby Bjorn pocket bibs, and the pocket just used to be absolutely filled with like everything that went to her tray. It would go from her tray into her mouth, swish it around a little bit, play with it, and then instantly spit it back out. Now she eats like almost everything we put on her plate. Clearly, I've been talking so long that we're having trouble keeping enough food in front of her. But they will also like work out what parts are good to eat and what are not good to eat. So even to this day, she loves eating tomatoes, like cherry tomatoes. I'll cut them in half or quarters depending on how big they are. And she will a lot of times just like spit the skins out. So when it comes to preparing certain foods and you're like, I'm really worried about the skin or the peel, chances are your baby will figure it out. If they don't want to eat the peel or the skin, they won't, and it'll come right back out. Another thing I get asked a lot is about water, and we introduced water when we introduced solids. And in the beginning, we only ever offered water at meal times with solids, just so that she would have a little something to wash her food down with. We actually started with this Snook cup. It's a sippy cup, and it's a sippy cup shape, but it was enough like a bottle that she didn't have any problems learning how to use it. We have since graduated to this Munchkin weighted straw cup, which is amazing. She learned how to use a straw after using those yogurt pouches, and she learned how to give those to herself and kind of suck, and those pouch openings are just like big straws, and so that kind of led her to learn how to do the straw, and these cups are awesome, love them. But anyways, now we give her water sometimes throughout the day, especially because it's hot and it's summer and things like that, but still mostly it is restricted to mealtime. So she's not just like chugging water all day long like her mama. And then lastly, I wanted to talk to you guys about her schedule and how many times a day she eats and things like that, because that is probably the second most frequent question that I get asked by y'all. When we first started, we were only offering her food at dinner time because we were all there, we were all together, we could watch her, and it was just easy, and we wanted to get her used to a family dinner. Probably right around 6.5 months, we started offering her a frozen waffle here or there, like in the middle of the day, and so that kind of gradually increased into her having breakfast and then dinner. And a lot of times she was like napping through lunch, so that was the meal she would skip. Right around the 7.5 month mark, I would say, she was consistently eating 3 meals a day, and at that point she was swallowing almost everything. There was no more like, oh, her whole dinner or her whole like lunch, breakfast was all in her pocket. No. Right now, there's nothing in her pocket. Like, she rarely spits anything out, she rarely drops anything unless she's full and done. So she is eating everything, and at that point I did start to notice a decrease in her milk consumption. I am still breastfeeding. Occasionally, like once a day, she will get a bottle, and that is about 5 ounces. So I get this question asked a lot as well. How many ounces is she taking? Truly, she's only getting a bottle at most once a day. Are you done? Here, mom holds you. Yeah. I know, you're done. You're done with this. We're almost finished. We're almost finished. They had a lot of questions, okay? All right, so yeah, I don't really know exactly how many ounces she's taking. I can tell you that around the 7 or 6.5 month mark, she started going down to only nursing 5 times a day. From a bottle, she takes 5 ounces. So let's just say she's taking 25 ounces, okay? And now she is pretty much down to like 4 big feedings where she's nursing or having a bottle. Again, it's 5 ounces if she's taking a bottle, but we've actually had to stop giving her the bottle right before bed because we have just eaten dinner. And now that she's eating a big dinner, she a lot of times will get over full if she takes that whole bottle. So we have just decided, let's give her that in the afternoon at like her 4 o'clock feeding, where there's no big meal associated with that time, and then that way she can control how much she wants to nurse from me before bed and then doesn't get too full and spit up everywhere. Okay, so I hope I answered all of your questions about baby led weaning. I hope this video isn't too long, but there is a lot to talk about when it comes to feeding your baby and starting her on solids. So we're done with this video. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if you aren't already, and we will see you all next time. Bye! Can you wave? Bye! Say bye, friends! Bye!
There you go.
It's yummy. It's just new. Hey friends, today I have my July favorites and I have quite a few things to show you, so let's just dive right in and get started. I'm gonna switch things up and start with the jewelry favorites. So I have been